So our Earth, it's out of harmony. Humans are mostly the problem here of just, being so densely populated and taking more than we give and not respecting the soils and the plants and the animals kingdom. And so let us all commit to, again, realigning ourselves just with the basic laws of nature. The basic laws of nature. May there be healing here. Healing on planet Earth. We need it. The Earth needs it if we're going to survive. If anything's going to survive. So, anyways, couple of questions I have popped into my consciousness. As far as this week's exercise or inquiry practice is, what am I projecting right now? And so I thought we'd just stop a moment and just say, well, what is projection? Projection is basically a filter that we have based on our conditioning, and we project it out to the world. And so when I was a young kid, about 14 or 15 years old, one of my friends had some of those like little red circle, like John Lennon hippie sunglasses, but they were rose colored. He said, Craig, check these out. And I put them on, and the whole world was red. And we know this game when we are angry, when we're irritated, when we have low blood sugar, when we're in pain. We project onto the world, this feeling of red, not John Lennon, sweet, soft, rosy red, but red like angsty, fiery. I don't like this. It's kind of like getting a little sandpaper in your eyes. I'm sorry, sand in your eyes. If you get sand in your eyes, you're like, oh my God, like everything I see just, it just makes me want to close my eyes. I'm in so much pain. And so we all play this game of projecting onto each other. We project onto our partners. I can remember when President Obama was elected, people projected the Messiah onto him. And I thought, oh boy, this boy, he may have some good ideas, but he's not going to save our world. He's not going to save our world. It's like Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden or whoever it is. They're not going to save us. But we project onto them, whether we think that they are great or mediocre or sleepy or, a narcissist, psychopath or whatever. We project. We could project a great businessman, a horrible businessman onto Donald Trump, and we just play this game, and most of us play it unconsciously. And so, part of this work of satsang is taking the backward step, stepping out of the trance, stepping out of the trance of life. And saying, no, I'm not going to project onto life. I heard this wonderful quote today from, I'm going to butcher the name, it's Tibetan, Tolle Unge Rinpoche. And he said, samsara is mind turned out, lost in its projections. So true. Samsara is mind turned out, lost in its projections. And he went on to say, nirvana is mind turned inward, recognizing itself. And boy, I love the Tibetans. They're just so exact, so precise. And so if we look at the second part of what he said, nirvana means cessation. It's like everything stops. The projecting stops. The story stops. It's mind turned inward, recognizing who and what I am. who and what mind is. And by mind in this sense, they mean awakened mind. And I just love this. Nirvana is mind turned inward, recognizing itself. Samsara is mind turned outward, lost in its projections. And we play this game all day long. As soon as we wake up, our mind is projecting, creating projections, moment by moment. And I was listening to this audio broadcast. I wish I had the fellow's name. It was this latest Sounds True broadcast, a Buddhist figure. And one of the things that he taught was he studied dream yoga, and so he learned about dream yoga. And he brought up this beautiful comparison. He said, like when it's daytime, the sun illuminates our world, and that's how we are able to see things. But he said, when you dream, who is it that illuminates your dreams? See, dream material, it's all objects. You're seeing all kinds of things. But who is it? What is it that illuminates that? What is it that illuminates your dream world? And that's the light of awareness. And so you see, it's here. It's here all the time. It's here all the time. Even if you close your eyes, there's an illumination. You might see the color red or blue or whatever it is. Even if you're in, complete darkness. One of the beautiful things I love about where I live is I can just go out and be in just total darkness without any light pollution or anything. And even then there's a light, there's a radiance. It's like, well, what is that light? What is that radiance? And one of the ways we cover that radiance or ignore it is through projecting just continually. I've said this often, but when people walk into a room, their mind looks and sees the objects on the other side of the room. No one sees the space. I love walking into a room and seeing the space. And just seeing the space, being the space. It's a much different experience. And when you're projecting and you just, looking outward and then identifying objects and putting it in a box of this is good, this is safe, I like this. Oh no, I don't like that. I don't like that color. Once upon a time, I had this little house in downtown Durango, this little mountain town, and it's built in 1890, and it was just such a rundown place. I didn't remodel the whole thing, but one day I looked at the walls and they were just ugly and beat up, and they just had cracks, and it was just, a nightmare. I thought, boy, I'm going to paint these walls. And I went to the paint store and I saw this bright orange. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want. And so I came home and painted. I had these like 10-foot ceilings and just painted just bright orange. So you walk in and it looked like a temple. And so for me, the projection was, this looks like a temple. It's an ashram. It's a holy ground. Other people would walk in the house and say, oh my God, like, what were you thinking? What is wrong with you to paint the inside of your house orange? People study, like the Hare Krishna colors, the Hare Krishna temples, or, been to India. They know, oh yeah, these bright colors, like the colors of the holy ones. But people who didn't know that and who weren't playing that game of projection, just thought I was literally mad to paint. Like, why would you paint your house that? And so we play this game. And it's interesting that our projections change oftentimes dependent upon how we are feeling. So again, getting back to this week's questions, what am I projecting right now? What do I project when I am stressed? What do I project when I'm connected to the truth? Hopefully, when we're connected to the truth, that we are this vast, spacious emptiness. Maybe there's zero projection happening. So what would it be like to live where we don't project at all? What would that be like? Can you imagine this? And so beautiful. So I encourage you all to sit with these questions. Last week, Richard mentioned that someone was projecting Jesus on me. That made me really uncomfortable. I don't like to be thought of as anything big. I just want to be me, just who I am, what I am. And if you follow me around, you'll see sometimes he's doing pretty good, and other times, not so much. Not so much. Not so much. So, anyways, so I encourage you all to play with these questions. What am I projecting right now? And the purpose of these inquiry questions are just to aid you, to kind of shine the light into a place where maybe we don't look very often. Before we know what a projection is, most people are completely unconscious, that we're doing this. One of the things that I learned through studying the Enneagram is, with these 9 different character fixations, there tends to be 9 different types of projections there. We project fear, we project anger, we project, sleepiness, laziness. We project all these things. We project confusion. And again, we project the most when we're stressed. When you're connected to the truth, you actually begin to see things as they actually are. As they actually are. One of the most beautiful experiences you can have, if you ever give birth or at a birth, everyone in the room, they're immediately in the present moment. When they see that baby come out, they see the baby clearly. Clearly. Maybe I'll back up and say most home births, because if you're at the hospital, they project this idea of everything's an emergency, everything's a trauma. Someone's going to die. Like, oh my God, we need to have the mom hooked up to all these machines and highly medicated and this and that. But if you have your baby at home, there's a sense of, oh yeah, we are life. We are life. Even in a hospital, those doctors, they see the beauty of a baby. They see the beauty of the baby. But we live in one of those countries where it's like 30% of the births are C-sections. It's like the only place in the world we're supposed to have the best medicine. We treat it like, something's wrong. Instead of living from a place of trust, that the body knows what it's doing, that life knows what it's doing. That life knows. And so, last week's questions, if I can pull it up, are am I awake to what I am beyond my body, mind, and ego? Lisa wrote, in the last few weeks, I feel like witnessing something, I have, basically no words to explain. I experience the void, vast awareness, doing simple everyday things. I don't take it seriously and believe anything about it. I just be. Just be. Yeah, this is beautiful. So to give yourself permission to be the vast awareness and just be. You don't have to attach onto it and say, this is the way, this is the only way, this is what it means to be awake. Yeah, this is the only way to be awake. We play so many games with attachment, trying to cling on to something. When I climb a mountain and look out at the big blue sky, it's a moment of infinite beauty. I don't try to hold on to that sky. And the best things in life, we don't need to hold on to. So anyways, Richard, did you have a question? Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I can.
If I can hear you.
Yeah, can you?
Hold on a second. Okay, now speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, yeah. And I just wanted to give you a little pushback real quick because I feel that, for instance, projection is one thing, to see an archetype flowing through someone is another. And like the Enneagram is a typology. Obviously, it's not appealing to absolute truth when it talks about seeing someone clearly. You're seeing them through a typology. Yeah. It's a relative truth, but it's practical and it is usable here on this plane at this time. In the same way, when I look at Adyashanti, kind of a Buddha archetype flowing through him. Is the Christ there also? Of course. But for you, you've got a very Christic archetype flowing through you. And I think a lot of different people see that. And is that a projection? Of course. It's not the absolute view necessarily, but it is also like a real part of you and your transmission, that you're more heart-centered. That's kind of what you lead with. I think that that's true also. So I just wanted to push a little. It's not pure projection necessarily. Sure. It can be.
No, I was waiting for the push there. I was like, what's the push? Where's the push going to be? I didn't feel like
that's right. That's right.
No, I mean, what you're saying is beautiful, Richard. And that's, there's a difference there between, say, projection and seeing essence. Like when you see essence in another, you're seeing the truth. I mean, that's what you're saying. You're seeing them for what they truly are. And each individual has a little bit different essence, and that's what makes us all unique. And so thank you, Richard. And yeah, I have such a big connection with Christ that I feel that, I feel it just flowing into me. So thank you. Did you have a question, or did you just want to share?
Yes, I did. No. I wanted to share that real quick. Okay. And then I do have a question, and my question is something that you've certainly answered before, but I'd love to hear you riff on it again. And it really has to do with lineage. And so just a quick qualifier here. We live in kind of, a lot of people do appreciate lineage. Others, especially in the kind of neo-non-dual, especially when we're initially getting in it, it's like, oh yeah, I can wake up all by myself and I can teach on YouTube or whatever. And there's no context.
That you threw it on there, and teach on YouTube,
And teach on YouTube, right? But there's no context. There's no context. There's no lineage transmission. There's no groundedness in that way. And so I would look, lineage, what is it? What's its importance? Lineage transmission, these kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful question. I mean, one way I'd look at lineage is it's very similar to being born in a country. It's like you'll always be, it's like, like we're born in the United States and We could move to Europe. We could move to London. We could move to, Johannesburg or something. But we're always going to be American. Like we're gonna have that deeply rooted in our being. And the way I look at lineage is in a real similar way. We all come from a certain heaven realm. And that heaven realm, it feels like home. It feels like home. And we know it when we experience it. Just like, if you go and you travel the world, I've traveled all over. But every time I landed back in the United States, I was like, boom, like it just felt like home. I've actually had two places in the world that felt like home. It's the United States and India. It just was like, boom, it just felt clear. I think India, because I had so many previous incarnations there. And then you travel the rest of the world and there's places you like, and, you can learn great things, from all different cultures. But you'll find there's one place where you're just meant to be. And this is how I view lineage is, there's just something there. It's a stream of divinity that you just feel at home in it. You feel at home in it. If you go and hang out at a Zen center and then go hang out at a Catholic monastery, there's a lot of similarities, but it feels radically different. It feels radically different. Now, Butch, he used to live over in Crestone, and he'd just drive down the road and go to like 8 different temples in Crestone, Colorado. I mean, you could probably 2 or 30, if you give yourself 2 days, and you notice each one has a different flavor. It has a different stream of divinity flowing into it. And, these streams of divinity, they have an intelligence to them. It's not just like walking into a candy shop and say, yeah, I'll have one of those. There's an intelligence to it. And keep in mind, this intelligence created you, gave you your life. And so when we are honoring lineage, it's just honoring that. It's honoring that which created you. And we're honoring the fact that this lineage, at least in this lifetime, normally lineage, if you transition, it's going to take place over numerous lifetimes. It's not just going to be like boom, one, and then boom to the next. There's going to be, you're going to have maybe, 400 years in Christianity or something before you transition over into Buddhism. And the reason I say this is you'll feel roots in it. You'll feel this deep power when you connect to your lineage. It's like having a home field advantage, in sports. It's like, this is my home. And I feel power in it. And I feel, my ancestors behind me. Now, I had this moment one day when I was at the SAND conference, and I went to see my friend Locke Kelly speak. And he's been trained in Tibetan Buddhism, but he teaches in a very non-dogmatic way. He's like stripped all the dogma out of how he teaches. But when I sat down and watched Locke, I had this vision of him, but then there was like 10,000 lamas behind him. It was almost like a psychedelic vision of, I just saw them all stacked on top of each other, just traveling into his past. And I told him that afterwards. We were having lunch, and I said, hey, Locke, I had this vision of you. I normally don't have these types of visions. And he almost had tears in his eyes. He said, thank you, Craig, so much for saying that, because he'd gotten in a little bit of trouble with his own, within his own lineage with his teachers, because he wasn't teaching the exact way that the history of the lineage has been taught. And he said it just meant so much to him. But the point there was, Locke, he's a part of this lineage. Adyashanti, he's a part of the Zen lineage, with the the Chan or the Chan masters, from the past. And so this doesn't mean you can't benefit. I've studied all different traditions. I've kind of woke up, lifetimes, or groups of lifetimes from Buddhist incarnations and, different, yogic incarnations and Christian incarnations. But there's a power there, and that's the basic connection with lineage is, it's like having a sangha. It's being a part of something that has roots. And, in this modern world with the internet, you can just jump from lineage to lineage, just with a click. And you can get yourself filled in all these different streams. And the beautiful thing is I'd like to say when you pick one, but really when it illuminates itself before you and says, hey, welcome home, you'll know it. And you'll progress the most when you stay in your lineage. It's the most efficient path for you. It doesn't mean you can't study, with other traditions. That's wise. Because every lineage has a shadow as well, just like any form has a shadow. But you find there's power there. It's like a soul contract, and you're meant to study in it. And your heart may tell you when it's time to be done, but just make sure you don't listen to the emotional nature, because the emotional nature oftentimes gets excited, especially about, oh, it seems like over there a lot of people are waking up. I'm going to run over there and check that out real quick. And, you run over there and you see, oh, wait, they say they're awake, but they're just, playing mental philosophy games with non-duality. You'll see it's not your truth. And so it can be helpful just to find your lineage and stay put there. Maybe staying put's the wrong word, but going deep is what I encourage. Within the space of your lineage, there shouldn't be much fight or resistance unless there's a wound there. When you connect with your lineage, there should just be just a sense of, oh yes, this makes perfect sense. Your heart's lighting up, your belly feels safe and true. Like when I study, we have these, I live on tribal land, and so we have these giant volcanic necks out in the desert. It's like where the mountain has been eroded, but there's something else in its place, just where the lava is still there. Because the lava rock is different than the sedimentary rock. So anyway, so these really amazing volcanic necks, and one of them is called Shiprock. If you ever see a picture of Shiprock, it's just amazingly beautiful. But the the tribes in the past, they had this great mythic story of these gods and goddesses, fighting, and that's what created this, this whole mountainous structure. And when I hear that story, it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't feel like anything to me, because I'm not connected to that tradition. I'm not connected to that tradition. Now, when I hear, the story of Krishna and Arjuna, when I read the Gita for the first time at age, so I think I was just 14, it's like I knew the next sentence. Like something just lit up, and I just knew that book. I knew it. It was like in my blood. But, ancient Anasazi, mythical stories or stories of their gods and goddesses, it's just like just total blank there. Feel no connection to it. I have deep respect, and love for their culture and their tradition. It's beautiful culture, beautiful traditions, but there's no connection there. And so I'm not going to push myself into their world and their mythology, their understanding. I want to go deep in what calls out to me. And so anyways, I hope that was helpful. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of questions here. Let me see if I can pull some up. Say hello to everyone here. Hi, Craig. My question is about planning versus worrying about the future. What is the future? Well, that's a fun question. What is the future? And how much should we think about it? My Lord, Kyle, what a beautiful question. What is the future? Oh, I love it. So we can speak about the future in all different ways. You could say it's completely real, which is true. It's a total illusion, which is true. And neither. And neither. Both and then neither. One of the fun things that happens after we awaken is our relationship with time. It just gets really washed away. So when we're in our egoic identity, it fabricates a linear timeline where we think we start here, we end there. But when you step off the timeline, step out of that projection, you can see all worlds, all time happening simultaneously. You can experience no time. You can experience only this moment. Of course, if you're in your ego, you get lost in the past and lost in the future. Now, I don't like to be lost in either of those two because, well, from this perspective, they don't exist. And so if we look at planning for the future, I'll steer that back to, basically a question of the heart and a question of lineage. So a question of the heart is, what is my trajectory? Like, where am I headed in this lifetime? That's part of your lineage. Like, where am I going here? Where am I going here? What is my life about? I could also add to that, with the future, you can create it. So when you are aligned with your heart, you consciously create. Of course, to some degree. When you're not aligned with your heart, you still create. You unconsciously create. One of my good friends, he unconsciously creates misery all around him. He walks around with his head down and talking to himself about how much everyone hates him. It's like, hey man, no one hates you. You're a nice guy. And so he just creates this idea that he has no friends and everyone hates him, and he's the biggest, I hate this word, but I'm going to say it, the biggest loser on planet Earth. And to me, I see just this beautiful man. I just want to slap him and say, stop it. Stop projecting that the world hates you. Because when you walk around with that, especially if you're looking down at the ground, and then you become socially awkward and anxious, and people might try to talk to you, but then they don't know how because you're busy hating yourself. And you create your own world of worry. Worry about the future. Yeah, let's not worry about the future. But we can also be really clear. Look, our planet is literally on fire. There's global warming. There's all kinds of crazy things happen at this moment of history because of overpopulation and overconsumption. And we can worry about that. We can dig a hole and have our doomsday bunker. Or we can just have a basic wisdom toward life. There's this thing that we used to have up until, probably about 1950. We used to have this thing called prudence. I think this is the right use of the word prudence. You just, you had food. You took care of yourself. You know how to be outside in the woods. Like you had a stockpile of food, not because you were an anxious, neurotic mess, but because, like if you didn't store your food 100 years ago, if you didn't have a stockpile of food going into winter, it'd be like the same as committing suicide. You'd starve to death. You starve to death. And so it's important that, yes, we look into the future and we're clear about it. We're not living in some fantasy that, oh yeah, it's just going to get easier and easier, and we'll just press a button on our phone and people will continue to deliver us food and we can do that forever. It's like, well, what happens when a pandemic happens? What happens when the restaurants shut down? What happens, if you have a big winter or a small winter, or, we have ridiculous forest fires? It's good to be clear about the state of the world, about where we are in our evolutionary cycle. But it's also good to be connected to the absolute. And so there's this old Zen saying, it's like the world is absolutely perfect as it is. This moment is absolutely perfect. And the house is on fire. And so can we live, Kyle, with this paradox, but without anxiety? And in order to live without anxiety, you have to relax in your belly. You have to relax deeply. But of course, it's wise in a human relative fashion not to worry, but be somewhat prepared. Like coming November, I'm really nervous about November. What's going to happen in November? Our country could go back into rioting again very easily. Very easily. Or we could be just fine. We could be just fine. We could be fine. The big picture, we will be fine. Okay, here's a question from Nanette. Thank you, Craig, for this conversation around lineage. I just took, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing. She went and did a Soto Zen ceremony, but I felt felt resistance to Buddhism or to any religious identity building. Oh, wow. But am I missing out on something by not submitting to one primary tradition? Nanette, you are a wild force of nature. You're in your own tradition, Nanette. And when you meet others like you, you will know you're at home. You're at home. And so let me finish your question. But Nanette is a real special being. But am I missing out on something by not submitting to one primary tradition and being a card-carrying member of that tradition? I just remember Adyashanti saying one time, perhaps people who don't wake up become Buddhists. That's beautiful from Adyashanti. People who don't wake up become Buddhists. You don't want to be an ist of anything, like a fundamentalist, a jihadist, whatever, fundamental Baptist. So Ajja speaking in the absolute sense. Now keep in mind, Ajja came from the Zen tradition. Ajja had two great teachers. One of them, Jakusho Kwong, who I just love and adore. It's a great teacher. But anyways, he's trying to point to, something different. That we can get stuck and become an ist. We don't want to become an ist. We want to come home. Come home to the depth of what we are. We don't want to be card carrying anything. We want to know who we are and what our life is about. And Nanette, you are a rare bird. And so I encourage you to get to know who you are in the fullest and deepest possible way. Hi, Craig. This is a question from a friend who I'm with. This is from Justina's friend. I was wondering if the reason we focus on breath and meditation is because it is a meeting point of space and awareness. And by that, we are placing our focus on the meeting point, the breath. Is part of how we can realize / incorporate non-dualism, there's the ism, into our reality and becoming oneness. Yeah, I'll make it real simple. It's all about the direct experience. When you focus on your breath, what's there? The direct experience of freedom, the direct experience of spaciousness. That's what non-duality is. The direct experience. So absolutely, we focus on the breath because the breath is the embodiment of the inflow, the outflow, where they meet as one in vast, spacious freedom. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Andrew writes, Craig, how can our ancestors help us come home and find out who we are? That's a fun question too. How can they? How can our ancestors help us come home and find out who we are? Your ancestors are always speaking to you if you know how to listen. They help to steer you here and they help to steer you there, right along your path. So there's two streams of ancestors. There's a stream of the positive side, which is that which is helpful. And then there's the habitual side. It's that which holds you back. And so we have to be careful when we say the word ancestors. My Irish ancestors have done a good job of maintaining alcoholism throughout my family. So that's one way they have not helped us to come home. But when I feel into that old Irish prayer, however it goes, may the wind be on your back, may the rain fall gently on your gardens. And I feel into the sweetness of my ancestors and that deep, non-dual Christian direct experience. Beautiful thing about Irish Catholics before they became, super aligned with the church. The Irish Christians, they were very earth-based. Earth-based. And so there was a non-duality to it, and a softness to it, an openness to it, a unity to it. And so if you speak to your ancestors, they'll speak to you. It's just like if you pray to God, if you talk to God, God will start speaking to you. So, calling on your ancestors, it's like calling on the great ones. So say if we're in the tradition of yoga, you call upon Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Krishnaji, Ganesh, Shiva. And sometimes they call upon you. I've met a number of individuals, probably thousands of individuals, who had a spontaneous kundalini awakening. And Shiva called out to them and said, hey, remember me? You are a part of this lineage. Now, it didn't come that clearly, but the flow of kundalini came, and it came in a snake-like way. And it came with all that power and that grace and that force. It began to remind the individual of where they came from. where they came from. Okay, let's see here. Got a lot of questions tonight, but let me see if I can get through them. This is from Demetrius. Why is there always a thought or an anxiety that you are not spiritual enough? So if we have this thought that we are not spiritual enough, it means one of two things or both. One, you're not connected to your truth. And two, there's probably the wound of unworthiness there. So if we have a thought, why am I not good enough to any degree? That means there's a wound of unworthiness there. It's almost always because someone, normally our parents, told us we weren't good enough. They let us down. They abandoned us. They ignored us, or they were just busy working, because they had to make an income to support a family or whatever it was. So if we have the thought that I'm not good enough, it's because there's a core wound of unworthiness. That is always healed only through consistent love. Unworthiness heals no other way. It's through you consistently loving you. So you connecting to the goodness of your heart that's within you and loving the part of you that has felt abandoned. So he goes on to write, basically about the confusion of that dance, which I just described. Is this all a game of the mind? No, this is a game of the emotions. And the emotions are telling you, the emotional mind is telling you, I need love. If you do not love your human self, this thing that you're calling a game of the mind will just go on forever. So there's an inherent intelligence here. If we have unworthiness, it means there's something coming forward saying, hey, I need love. And if you ignore that in the name of spirituality, you may experience peace, but your peace will be continually disturbed by the thought, I'm not good enough. This isn't the full thing. And it's supposed to be disturbed because it's inviting you to discover what true love is, unconditional love. Here's a question from Angie. Hi, Craig. 2 years ago, I started noticing energy moving through me. So this is Shiva coming for a visit. I wish I could say it's been pleasant, but it hasn't. The energy current moves through my neck, and I get this constant head pressure. And quite honestly, it's caused a bit of challenge in my everyday life. I'm curious, how will counseling help with all the symptoms you have listed? So any kundalini symptom that's overly difficult almost always has to do with the fact that there is a blockage in one of our chakra centers. So if there's head pressure, it's normally self-judgment or just judgment in general. So when we have a lot of judgment within our nervous system, or if we have negative belief systems, neurotic thoughts, it just creates congestion in that chakra center. So when the kundalini tries to flow through it, it can't flow fluidly through that center because there's a bunch of junk in the way, a bunch of psychological stuff. So counseling helps to heal that. Through the healing of that, then the center becomes clear, open, and spacious, and then the kundalini can flow through it. So this is true of any center. So if we have pressure in our belly, in our heart, our pelvis, and like pelvis, it's common that we have wounds with the family system, or we have financial fears. We don't feel safe in the world. We have a trauma. Anyways, when you meet it with love, then it's healed. So counseling, in theory, a good counselor will help connect you to your truth, will help you to see clearly, and will help you to love you And when you love you fully, the whole body, nervous system relaxes. When you're relaxed and open, energy flows. When you're closed and contracted, there's pressure. Pressure, heartache, pain, anxiety. It's just basic. It's a basic human dynamic. Okay. Here's a question from Anne in Sweden. Hi, Craig. I have been crying for 7 years, and I'm a hypochondriac. I'm always afraid. I have PTSD and trauma from childhood. Everything is coming up. The last year has been very difficult. How do I get rid of death anxiety? Wow. By looking directly at it, just seeing what it is. So the fear of death, I mean, the hilarious thing is none of us die. The body will die, but we're just going to go from one world to the next. So once I got on a plane at LAX, I'll actually make it a little bit more fun. Once I was dropped off for a flight, 10 hours early at LAX. So I just spent 10 hours walking around LA with my backpack. And I entered in all different types of worlds and realities. And then, in a similar way of traveling from one lifetime to the next, I walked into the LAX airport and had a much different experience. And I got on a plane, and the next plane I got off was Hong Kong. Whole other world. Next plane I got off was Thailand. Whole other world, Bangkok. And next plane I got off was in Mumbai, India. Whole other world. And so we don't die. So I can tell you this, but you won't believe it until you face pain, till you face terror, till you face confusion and anxiety, and you outlive it. And you realize, oh, there's something here that doesn't die. Just like at nighttime, there's something here that lights up your dream world. What is that? That is your presence. That's your presence. But death isn't scary. What's scary or what's difficult is having a human body. A human body that feels so much. We feel trapped in this and that. And so I think your real question is how do I work with anxiety? And I'll tell you the same thing I told the person before. If you have anxiety within you, you meet it with love. So you went back and you said, I've been crying for 7 years. I have PTSD and trauma from childhood. And so I have a 6-year-old in my house. She cries every day. She falls on her face. She scrapes her knee. We were out playing soccer the other day. She kicked the ball and she slipped on the ball and was bleeding and screaming. And so when you have a mom and dad who aren't fully there for you, who aren't able to give you the love you need, we still need to go through those developmental steps. And so in a healthy household, you get to go through the developmental steps. And so when you want to cry, you cry. If you're angry, you get to be angry. You learn how to work with your emotions and work with yourself. But most of us didn't get that time. So then come adulthood, when we get out of the house with the family, sometimes we need to spend 7 years unloading 7 years of pain that we carried. Now, it's a good question to ask is, am I being skillful in the letting go? So with healing, you need to be connected with clarity. So you see what happened clearly. You see your situation now clearly. You see that you are safe now. So you can breathe, you can feel, you can relax. The second thing we need to do is learn how to love deeply and fully, attend to our wounds. The third thing we need is strength. So the strength keeps us out of the gutter. You know, you can see clearly that the experience was traumatic. You can meet the trauma with love, but if you don't have a strength, it's easy just to fall into the deep well of suffering. Say, oh my God, this happened. It was so terrible. I can't believe it. You know, and then you just go in the revolving realm of, you know, the bottomless pit of being a victim. So if we feel like we've been crying for 7 years and it doesn't feel like we're getting lighter, we need to connect to our strength. And a lot of people are really good at seeing clearly, or they're good at loving, or they're good at being strong, but they don't know how to do all three. If you're just strong, normally you say things like, shut up and get over it. That's not really strength. That's repressed anger and self-hatred. And so, you know, the strength is the willingness to love eternally and to continue to see clearly, you know, after it's been 7 years. And to ask, what else do I need to be doing? Is there a different way I need to respond to this? Do I need to see a trauma therapist? Do I need to get some massage or body work? So anyways, here's a question. Hi, Craig. I've had a reasonably, I like that, reasonably significant shift. Since our last appointment, I had a big emotional release and also some long-held drama with family, which began to come to the surface. The reason I'm writing this, however, is following this, I've had periods of no mind, which just occur without me meditating. It has been very eerie and disconcerting, and I am hypersensitive to my environment. Just relaxing and doing my best to go with the flow. But is this normal? Do you have any advice? Thank you. Yeah. So it's very common after you let go of something big, for then all of a sudden for you to be in a very disorienting world of emptiness. Because there's a void there where there used to be a big chunk of, say, psychological pain and suffering. And so I encourage you just to bumble around in the emptiness, to feel into it, to open into it, to relax into it, be disoriented. But at the same time, notice I am okay. I'm okay to be disoriented. I'm okay. It's very common after you let go of something big for you to go completely blank. I love it. And so back to that person I was speaking to, the question before, if it's been 7 years and we're not feeling lighter, you know, we're being like the puppy who eats something it shouldn't, vomits, and then eats its vomit. You know, it's just like making itself sick again. It's like I'm let go as I'm vomiting, but then I'm eating it up, so I'm ingesting it again. Sorry for the terrible metaphor, but it's a good one. When you let go, make sure you let go. Let go. And you will feel empty. It feels very eerie and disconcerting. So the eerie part, so this has to do with a projection. So there's some place within you that feels insecure about new realms. So it says this is eerie. If it's emptiness, that's all it is emptiness. So if you're having an experience of no mind, be no mind. Don't be the little mind that's projecting eeriness onto no mind. If you step into no mind, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Just like if we're going to get on a plane, and fly to Hong Kong. Get out and enjoy Hong Kong. Don't judge it and say it's not America. It's not Australia. It's not Europe. You know? Be in Hong Kong. See the beauty of Hong Kong. Be in no mind. So this is good. If you're having spiritual experiences without meditating, so this means, you know, you're fully surrendering. It's starting to take root. This is a good sign. Okay. Let me see what's here. One more question, folks. Hi, Craig. I have rage, and my kundalini has been awake for 7 years. I've been working with myself. I've been doing shadow work. And my question to you is if we have rage, if the rage has been consistent for 7 years, again, my question is are you working skillfully? Do you have a partner, an inquiry partner? Do you have a teacher who can help you, guide you? Do you have a counselor, a therapist? You know, if we're struggling with rage for 7 years, that's, you know, that can be a long time if we're not making progress. But I can also humbly say that I worked with anger for a good part of 15 years. And so, you know, if the rage is, you know, out of 10 for more than 6 months, we probably need to be in therapy, get some support. Sometimes we try to do all this work on our own and nothing changes. Part of the healing with that is giving yourself permission to be vulnerable and ask for help. So this person goes on to write that there's no letting up in the mental chatter. So that's the thing I always look for, is if the symptom that we're having is consistent and it's not changing, it means we need to do a little something different. A little something different. You know, and of course, you know, we're not going to heal all of our core wounds in one night. But, you know, if it's been over 6 months and we haven't had some sort of breakthrough or letting go with it, we need to do something different. And so sometimes it means we need to go on retreat. Sometimes it means we need to call upon a healer. Sometimes, you know, we have to look where we don't normally look. He goes on to write, I feel like at any moment the center of my brain will crack open like an egg and light will come through because I have so much energy running up my spine. Yeah, so just let it flow through. Kundalini will not kill you. People get really dramatic in regards to Kundalini. He goes on to write, I must be doing something wrong. My heart is yearning to face these emotions, feel bliss at times and freedom. I'm afraid that this practice of me facing and embracing the anger inside of me is showing me that I might actually be watering the seeds of hatred rather than integrating this charged emotion. I'm literally afraid of my reactions. Yeah, I mean, the big thing here is to get support. Let someone else help you. Let someone help you. I met with my teacher David. I would meet with him 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes once a week, and just have a deep talk. And so working with healing is messy. Working with rage can be messy. Sometimes it can just be helpful to have someone hold space for us and let us know you're not just rage. You're something much greater. much greater. Sometimes we need someone to ask us, what's under the rage? What's under the rage? Oh my gosh, there's so much sadness here. Can we just let the sadness flow? And then as the sadness flows, oh, I'm stepping into no mind. No mind. And so beautiful. Let me just check and make sure I did my part. Got all the questions. Make sure I don't miss anyone. Yeah, I think so. So it's been nice to sit with you all tonight. Again, let's all just gently close our eyes and invite a great wave of peace just to shine out all over our planet. Blessing Mother Earth, Mother Gaia. May the Southwest be flooded with rain. With rain. May the fires stop. May human beings treat each other with love and respect. And we treat this planet with love and respect. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings be free. Thank you all so much for sharing your hearts with me. Thank you for your donations and all your support along the way. It's deeply helpful. Thanks for keeping this free and open by supporting this satsang. Truly, from my heart to yours. Until next time. Bye for now. Good night, everyone.